Hi, everybody. I'm on tonight. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Colonel Parker, and he is the mastermind behind the plot of Elvis Presley's death. All right, so that's the title of our live stream today. So the first thing I want to talk about is the truth about Elvis Aaron Presley in his own words. He has said multiple times in here things about Colonel Parker. So the first thing he said in the actual introduction of the book, he said, let's see, where is it now? The colonel took this, oh, wait a minute. The colonel took this secret to his grave. He was a loyal friend. So that was the first thing he identified the colonel as. And this is 2002. Colonel Tom Parker died in, I believe it said 1998, I believe. Hold on. Well, anyway, around there. So he was already gone when this book came out. He also said in here about Colonel. Let's see if I can get more here. The colonel was the real mastermind behind it. We left so many clues that some people could find out. For many years now, there's been a person who has been on to me, and he has pictures, but no real evidence as far as I know. So he just said, first of all, the colonel took the secret to his grave. He also said he was a loyal friend. He also said he was the mastermind behind it and that they left many clues. Now, I was showing you the clues throughout all these last live streams. They've left a lot of clues. First of all, he left musical clues. He left uh, talks with friends and family that were major clues. The gravestone clue is an example. And there's some other things that have happened that were clues that we haven't gone over yet. But they left clues behind, especially musical clues. Most of his last tour, they called it the farewell tour, because most of the songs on his last tour, especially the ones in May, June of that year, 1977, he picked out songs that either he never played before or sang before in concert. All right. Now he had this planned, like we talked last time. In 1974, he started planning this out. There was more information about the colonel here. Let me see. A lot of letters here in this book, so give me 1 second to find it. The colonel also had him pick out someone he trusted out of his group to help him out. So the colonel suggested that Joe Esposito be on the plan. So Joe Esposito had a major task to do when it came time to staging his death. And the other thing that he said was there was something else here. He had set up the plan, and let me see. Um, there was one more thing I wanted to say out of this book that he revealed. I gotta find it now. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. So he had also had connections with a famous man in Las Vegas who had the financial means to pull this off. And then Howard Hughes as well was also involved. And I think it all had to do with the colonel being involved in planning this all out. The colonel was very I'll say he had a lot of people he knew. He was very resourceful and very helpful. And they actually had a really good relationship. I mean, there were times, yes, where they argued and everything. Now, Linda Hood Sigmon, um, I left her link underneath in the description. You guys can go on that anytime. There's all kinds of information. She has said, especially she knows Elvis now. So this is what she had said. They had a very close business relationship. They dealt with stress and they had their difficulties, like any business relationship, any relationship. But there was a bond of friendship and love. And I mean, if we watched that movie from Elvis, when you guys watched that movie, I'm sure you've all seen that movie, Elvis, with Tom Hanks and Austin Butler. There was a few things I wanted to pick out, but I couldn't find the clips for. So I'm just going to shoot it out there. First thing that I noticed is that Colonel Parker saw potential, and saw money signs. Colonel Parker was a con man. He really was, but he was very, very good at public relations. He was very good at marketing, promoting, but he was very poor with his business, some of the business aspect. But he did do it, and I'm sure he had some help somewhere in the offices. Okay, so he took Elvis on, right? And it says he made 50% of all his proceeds, and that's the truth. He gambled it away. That's the truth. Okay. But there was a friendship and a love. If you remember, there was one particular scene, I can't remember where it was, but they're walking, I think either away from the stage or to the stage, and he says, "If you ever need an out, I will give you an out." That was number one. That was in the movie. I saw it. I just don't remember where. All right. That was number one. So he said, whenever you want to get out of here, out of this business, I'm going to get you out. So that was a clear indication. That was a hint of what was going to come in that movie. All right. Number two, when Elvis's mother died, the colonel had to go console Elvis because he was miserable. He was up in his mother's closet and he was hugging her stuff and he was all crying and everything. And he promised that he would be there for him no matter what. He was there for him the whole time. All right. So there was a love. I think there's also a quote in like I think it was a Las Vegas show where he says, "I love Colonel Parker is my manager and I love him." He meant it. He loved him. But so did Colonel Parker. Colonel Parker loved Elvis. Believe it or not, they had a loving relationship. It's just a business relationship sometimes got in the way. And of course, egos and other things get in the way, right? Just like we love our moms or our dads or our brothers or our sisters, and we could fight, and we could holler, and we could be mad, but still love each other. Correct? I hope so. Anyway, so Jesse told Linda Hood Sigmon these words to her. "I didn't know what I was going to do when Colonel Parker died." So he knew ahead of time, before any media came out, that he was ill. And the illness didn't come out till after he died, but he knew he was ill. And in June of 1997, okay, it must be 1997 he died. He called a mutual friend that Linda knew, Jesse did, or Elvis did, and he told him that Colonel Parker was dying. And only a few weeks later, Colonel Parker did die, and he called his friend to tell him, and they called Linda. And this was even before the media announced that the colonel died. So Elvis kept in touch with the colonel through this whole time. All right. So here's some other things that she revealed. She also revealed that Jesse Elvis had told her ahead of time about some of his friends that died as well. He told her about Charlie Hodge and that he had cancer. Joe Esposito was ill and had dementia. And he revealed their illnesses and that they were pretty terminal before their actual death. And when he found out they died before the media even announced it. Okay. And I think the same thing with J.D. Sumner. He kept in touch with J.D. Sumner. So a lot of his friends, Jerry Schilling, he keeps in touch with him as well. We will cover that someday because he did some interesting work behind the scenes. And he worked with Jerry Schilling for a couple movies. But that's another topic for another day. So the other thing that she wanted to stress that she had quoted is she quoted Colonel Tom Parker a couple times. So he was quoted as saying in one interview that nothing's changed. This is no different from when he was in the army. And this is after 1977. In 1991, the colonel was stated as saying in a California TV show when he was responded to a question about Elvis's death, he said he wanted a way out and I showed him how to do it. Exactly the same kind of quote that I heard on the Elvis movie. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So now we know that Elvis kept in touch with Colonel Parker. So we know that, and those are the quotes. So now now you're gonna say, well, what's the deal? You know? So in Gail Brewer-Giorgio's Is Elvis Alive? She questioned one thing. See, she wrote this book, Orion. Okay? This book here. In 1978. And it was shortly after Elvis died that it started just flowing out. It was a fictional book. She never did any research. She did no homework, nothing. She just started writing a book about this mythical character, kind of Orion, based on astrology and um, mysticism and Christianity, kind of a blend of different religions, things like that. But what it did was it mirrored Elvis's life pretty good for some reason. And she couldn't believe how much it mirrored. So she was not an Elvis fan. She did not watch his movies. She did not listen to his music. She knew nothing about him. The funny thing is like the manager in this book mirrors Colonel Parker with the cigar. All right? And the main character, Orion, mirrors Elvis, his life. Very interesting. He was born a twinless twin, all that kind of thing. And at the end, she has him fake his death, and the manager helps him. So, what happened was when the singer Orion came out, they based it on this, like the characters in this book. And even though it was Sun Records, and even though it was copywritten, they stole that information. But she never never did a copyright claim or whatever on that. Never took them to court. Found out there were two Orions. Interesting. When this book hit the shelves, it disappeared off the shelf. So then she's questioning, well, what happened to my book? Well, that's where this came from. Then she started researching Elvis. Okay, because she found out that there were two Orions and they sound exactly like Elvis. One of them called her, and that was interesting phone call, but we'll cover that another day. So the book ended up getting taken off the shelf. So she is calling around. She called the publisher, she called all these people, and come to find out, she found out the colonel told the publisher to remove the book off the shelves to protect the story and the secret. Okay. And she also found out that the company that she originally wanted a book to be printed out from was let's say had ties with Colonel Parker's business. So like he basically had some ownership in the company. So this is what she had said, and I thought it was quite interesting. I think she questioned Colonel and his role in this plan. I think I've got the right spot. And just let me double check. Okay. So she's questioning why the colonel didn't look sad. Why the colonel was dressed up not for a funeral and he wasn't really like mulling around mourning. He was doing all other things during the funeral. So this is why she made her question it. So she said on page 139 of this book, I'm going to do the best I can here. Merle Haggard said in 1979 in People magazine that Elvis may have faked his death, and that would be the first chance of freedom in his whole entire life. And it could have been the scheme of Colonel Parker dreamed up. Now, Elvis just said in here, or Jesse just said in here, that he was the mastermind behind the whole thing. So he confirmed this theory in this book. All right. Just the mystique surrounds the life and the death of Elvis Aaron Presley. Thus is Colonel Thomas Andrew Parker's existence shrouded in mystery. Did the man who orchestrated the life of Elvis Presley also orchestrate the death of Elvis Presley? Would he have the know how to remove from Elvis one identity and replace it with another? According to reports, he possessed that type of know how. There's a lengthy portrait of the colonel in Albert Goldman's book, Elvis, stating that Tom Parker is, in reality, Andre Van Kook. Rather than being born on June 26, 1909, in Huntington, West Virginia, the colonel was born in the Catholic city of Breda in South Holland. No record of the colonel's birth exists in the files in Huntington, West Virginia. Apparently, the colonel was even at the early age masterful in the creation of a new identity. It is said he entered the United States illegally. Regardless, it does appear that he was able to completely disassociate himself with his family and friends back in Holland. The mastermind a new life as Colonel Tom Parker in the United States. His word was golden. Because of this, he was able to dispense with many of the legal customs of business. His signature is rarely found on contracts or checks. It is said he has never owned a credit card, pays for everything in cash, and has no passport. A passport requires a proof of birth. If one were illegally, it would be well advised never to appear in a court of law or allow yourself to be a target of legal investigation. The business the colonel chose to be involved and was fraught with litigation, yet he has managed to stay out of court. Recently, Parker was removed by probate court from handling Elvis's estate, the result of the allegations of mismanagement. And this is written in 1988. Okay. The allegations were filed by Lisa's court appointed guardian, Judge Joseph W. Evans, wrote in a heated opinion that the compensation received by Colonel Parker is excessive and shocks the conscience of the court. Evans then ordered the Presley estate to cease all dealings with Parker. This same article, which appeared in People magazine in 1981, further states that the colonel, rather than being Thomas Andrew Parker from West Virginia, is in fact Andres Cornelius Van Kook of Breda, Holland, who came to the United States in 1929 at the age of 20. The speculation that he's as an illegal entry is underlined by People's next statement. His foreign birth supports speculation that the reason Presley never accepted multi-million-dollar overseas gigs was Parker's inability to secure a U.S. passport. And that's the truth. He would not allow Elvis to travel outside of the United States. I mean, the only thing he could do was and if he went to the Bahamas, he went by himself. He didn't take Parker. So what Parker did was, well, because you can't tour around the country, around the world, I will have you via satellite. So he thought of the satellite concert in 1973, so that Elvis could be seen around the world. Okay. So even Elvis stated once that he thought the colonel was born in Holland and that he probably got here by jumping ship. More than one person who knew the colonel was to remark that the colonel had a fear of crossing outside the United States borders and maintained a secret and fictitious past. The sum total of what the various writers have found out about the colonel are consistent. He refuses to leave the United States for overseas travel, always overpaid the IRS, thus avoiding legal investigation, avoided being in a position of being sued or to be sued, thus never being in court, operated in cash, thus never authorizing any credit investigation, remained secretive and cagey about his past. I think it's an interesting choice of words which Albert Goldman uses in Elvis when describing the colonel. He made the decision to enter his past and cover his traces permanently. The unusual business arrangements which existed between the colonel and Elvis were always been suspicious. According to the Memphis attorney, Blanchard E. Truel, appointed by the probate court to represent Lisa, Elvis signed away an incredible one half of his gross to the colonel. A cut, Truel says, was exorbitant, excessive, and unreasonable, and raises the question of whether Parker has been guilty of self-dealing. Not intending to dissect the colonel and his business dealings, I do believe it's essential to show that if Elvis were to bury his old identity and to establish a completely new life, Colonel Tom Parker possessed such an expertise because of the possibility of establishing a new identity and a new life for himself. And the colonel's family thought him dead. The colonel has always managed to divert any serious attention directed at him. He is definitely a now you see me, now you don't enigma. People near the colonel said he did not act surprised by the death of Elvis. He had taken Elvis into his company boxcar enterprises, and instead of going to Memphis on August 16th, he flew to New York to meet with Harry Geisler, owner of the Factors, a merchandising firm that has put out collectibles such as Farrah Fawcett's t-shirts. The Colonel signed a deal for merchandising rights to Elvis that in death would be worth millions. I find it interesting to note that this deal with Factors was negotiated by the Colonel and Boxcar Enterprises rather than the Presley estate, and that's interesting too. Apparently, the Colonel and his associates received 75% of the merchandising income. Again, an incredible amount. Goldman points out in his investigative book that there are a 10% off the top finder's fees, commission paid by the William Morris Agency, which is the company that she originally wanted her book to be printed by, but found out it was affiliated with the Colonel and they weren't having that book. She felt kind of weird. Anyway, William Morris again. Not only had I learned of the close relationship between the Colonel, Abe Losvogel, and Bob Neal, but Albert Goldman in his Elvis pointed out that some of the salary of the Colonel's large staff was actually paid for by the William Morris Agency. And Goldman points out that Abe Losvogel I don't know what I did. Anyway, I can't see you guys, so all right, there we go. Sorry. The president of William Morris was a mouthpiece for Colonel Parker. And this was the kind of closeness I have to question the type of deals which were made on behalf of and for Elvis Presley. I wonder just how self-serving these deals were, but more, why are the same people at William Morris courted me? And then why was her book stopped? She also was mentioned. It also mentioned that she was instructed that she was never mention Elvis Presley in connection with Orion. Okay, and then she was courted by them. And then she received a late night telephone call from a mystery voice calling himself Orion. But then Jimmy Ellis, who is actually Orion, who said he was Orion, said, I have no idea who you are talking about. I don't remember any phone calls. Okay. So obviously. And Sun Records was Elvis's old label. So then she goes on about her Orion thing. But I thought this was quite interesting. Now, she also said in here that his death, when he also said it in the documentary, uh, Elvis found a lie about Colonel Parker. He said something about what he thought about this scheme. Now, the problem is that this video or movie doesn't really say he was the mastermind in the whole thing. It made it sound like Elvis was and Dr. Nick was, but um in his book he said it, and I think he really kind of controlled um what do I want to say? Kind of controlled what he would allow Joe Gilbert to um do on teleprompter, right? Release. Okay, so this is the clip. I'm going to show it to you on my iPad. First, I got to hear the voice. Oops, a minute. I had to shut my voice off. My earphones off so we can have volume. See, I don't know how to clip these onto a live stream, so I'm going to just do it this way. All right. This is from the documentary Elvis Found Alive. I will put this clip in the description when I'm done and I edit the thing.
What did the others think about the fake death idea? Colonel Parker, Dr. Nick?
The colonel said it was a great move, public relations wise. That it'd be a great way to make money off the fans. You see, the colonel couldn't control me anymore in life. I was sick of him. I was more valuable to him dead.
And that's the truth. He was more valuable to him dead. Because obviously, his estate made a lot of money off of his death. It increased the value of his estate. Like it said, this is back in 1988. There might be even more now. 2,000 visitors a day at Graceland, and that makes 700,000 annually. On the 10th anniversary, it drew 50,000 people. I said in 1988, Graceland brings in $9 million a year, making Elvis's home one of the most successful tourist attractions in the world. And it's probably more now. Okay. And it also said that Elvis made more than 900 recordings, including 140 million selling gold records, probably more than that now. In all, and his records have sold more than 1 billion copies, half of them since his death. Merchandising of Elvis's memorabilia brings in more than millions, as do the collector's items. For example, the first 5 records Elvis made for Sun Records sold in 1955 for 89 cents. In 1977, a set of 5 Sun Records sold for $4,000 a piece. And then there's many, many fan clubs and so on. That's what she said in this book. And we're talking, this is 1988, so now it's 2024, and we've got a lot. We got Facebook groups now, and we got all kinds of groups now, things like that. So in the book, so what we can glean from this is that Colonel Parker was the mastermind because he had done it before. And I guess they found out that in a background check that he did something illegal that forced him to leave Holland. I'm not sure if it was not sure. Allegedly, I'm going to say they said it might have been a murder or domestic disturbance or something with his old life. So he basically left the country and headed to United States for a new life. A lot of people used to do that back in the day. They would leave the country if they did something wrong, and they would move to the United States and start all over with a new identity. And there are other factors probably involved, especially his threats from the mafia. As we read that the other day, Gene Smith had revealed that to Deborah, that he was getting death threats for Lisa, a death threat for himself, for his involvement with the mafia and the DEA. So the colonel knew how to do stuff to make a new identity for Elvis. And Elvis chose his own identity. And they remained friends until the day Colonel died. And he said to Linda, I don't know what I will do now. Because I think the colonel was kind of like a parent to him, like a father figure toward the day. He said basically, I don't know what I'm going to do when Colonel Parker dies. All right. Well, he did die, and I guess he survived, but I'm sure he misses him, along with his other friends and everybody else. Okay. That's all I have today. If anyone has any comments, you may leave it, and I'll try to respond the best I can. And you guys have a great day. If you find this information interesting and you've never seen this channel before, or you may subscribe and get more. We have a bunch of music videos from Spelling on the Stone. I'm not saying they are Elvis. They could be. You guys can decide that on your own. But I do have those made. I separated the songs. Someone else had the album in its entirety on YouTube as well. Um, uh, but I took them and I separated them into separate videos. It's a lot nicer, and I like some of the songs, so that was cool. And let's see. And let's see. I went over some musical clues. We did My Way. I did Fairy Tale, and Fairy Tale is interesting, and the conversation we're having on Fairy Tale is interesting. So let me just kind of state my aim on this. He did not write the song, right? And recorded the song in what, 75, I think they said, or 73 or around there. And I don't think it was originally planned to tell you what he's going to do in the future about his, planned his death or whatever. But toward the end, he found that song quite interesting. And in the beginning of the video, he says, "This is the story of my life. It's called Fairy Tale." Now, right there, that is a clue. He is telling you this song, you got to listen to it because it's very important. And the thing says, he says, "I'm going to pack up my things and I'm going to walk away because I tried to love you, but I can't." You know, it, it's very, very interesting. Just the words, just reading the words. So it's not that he was very, let's say, strategic in his choice of songs. He even did a song that he never did in concert ever. No One Stands Alone. He did that. Never did it before in concert. And he threw off his musicians. He threw off his background singers because they had no idea he was going to sing that song. That's a video too, but it's not a live video. I think it's just an audio recording and then they just put pictures up. All right. But I guess he got on the piano like he did with Unchained Melody, and he played it and sang that song. He hadn't done that ever in concert. So Linda Hood Sigmon has a lot of that information on her site, and that is in the bottom description in the link. You guys can click on that anytime and read everything on there. And those of you who think I'm crazy, well, I'm giving you plenty of evidence and plenty of book evidence, and you guys can make a judgment yourself. But I know Elvis says people think you're crazy when they don't understand. So we'll just leave it at that. So I'll be back on in a couple more days, and maybe I'll come up with a different topic to talk about and read a little bit more out of these little books here. And you guys have a great night. God bless you all. Bye for now. And God bless you all.